to the FanSpeak Network and another episode of Sibling Showdown. We are back this week for a bonus episode, or a two-part episode, if you will. We are going to be covering Underdog Week 18 Battle Royale draft. We're going to do an Underdog Battle Royale Week 18 live draft, as we always do every week. We kind of skipped 1 week for the holiday, but we're back at it. And we are going to then kind of combine it with our short slate show, and we're going to do a Saturday Week 18 short slate show and look at that. So that's going to be all combined together. It's part Underdog, part DraftKings, short slate. It's going to be fun. And then, of course, check out everything for free on fanspeak.com. Steve's Underdog Battle Royale rankings already up. On Friday, we will have the Saturday Short Slate survey. On Saturday, Steve will have the Short Slate primer. So everything will be available on fanspeak.com for free. Check that out. But this will be our two-parter covering everything. Let me go to you, Steve, now, as I keep rambling about all this fun stuff that we're going to try to do today. How are you doing? And what are you thinking for Week 18 here?
Yeah, no, doing well. Week 18, definitely interesting. Had to focus on teams with the most motivation, maybe some teams that want to play spoiler. And also, we can find spots where maybe a backup who's just going to get a lot of work ends up being a good play, especially when we talk about, DFS or these battle royales, because maybe they're not ranked or something along those lines. So yeah, we can get into that, but I think we got to focus on the information that we have and just go from there.
Yeah, so much information. This is the information week. You stay on top of information, playoff implications, player implications of contracts and usage and that kind of stuff. You can have a little bit of an edge, but there's a lot of information to sift through. I highly recommend checking out Establish the Run. They do an excellent job keeping track of all the Week 18 implications. So I highly recommend Establish the Run. I got to say hi to Andrew in chat. He's our guy. He says, hello. Can't believe it's Week 18. I can't believe it too. Andrew, to be quite honest, I don't do well with the end of football season. I get super, I'm a football girl, 365, but thanks to best ball, football, NFL can be 365 days a year. But as the season winds down, I have to give myself therapy each week and be like, okay, there's still 3 weeks after the season. So you still have 4 weeks of full slates left. It's still a fifth of the season. I have to give myself pep talks each week, because after NFL season, it is not pretty for me. But that's when I'll just get more and more into the best ball street. So Andrew did awesome. He was in the BBM finals. Congrats to him. Steve was in the DraftKings. Yeah, he was in one of the DraftKings finals. I did a post yesterday as far as wrapping up best ball season. Best ball season was so fun. Steve and I both had a killer advance rate, amazing advance rate, and we were super happy and proud of all the content we did. Super happy with our advance rate. For me, it did not go well in the semifinals. A lot of injuries down the stretch and through the playoffs, so I did not have a finals team. That was tough, but I'm only doubling down on this format. I absolutely love best ball. I love where it's going. And I am just going to be cranking out more and more best ball content. So I'm going to regroup. And therapy this week for me is doing a ton of best ball, playoff best ball, the next essentially 10 days or whatever. So Steve and I will be doing playoff best ball shows next week. Look for that. And probably some playoff best ball content. Look for that. And then, we'll be quickly then jumping into what went right, what went wrong, strategies in 2023, what we can do better. And then it'll just then go right into our 2024. So best ball season never ends here on fanspeak.com. We will have playoff best ball. We will have recapping 2023 best ball. And then we will heavily jump into 24 best ball, Super Bowl all the way through, Labor Day or whatever. And we promise to really roll out heavy amounts of best ball content. Right, Steve?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, again, congrats to Andrew on your finals. That is awesome. Once you make any best ball finals, you're hooked. You're hooked for life. And that's why we're at, and that's why we're going to keep cranking out great best ball content for you. So I have to say, Mike, hi to Mike Carr too. He said, who do you want as the next Washington head coach? And Andrew is a Washington fan, just like Steve and I. He answered for us. So Ben Johnson would be the number one target. Who else are you waiting, or who would be, if you can't have Ben Johnson, who is it for you, Steve?
Well, typically I wouldn't mind an offensive guy. Tough to argue against Dan Quinn, Cowboys defense coordinator, former head coach. Hopefully bring a bright offensive guy along, but boy, he got a lot from that Cowboys defense. And sure, there's some top picks there, but there's a lot of guys they've gotten late, mid rounds, late rounds. And even, they suffered injuries this year. They suffered Diggs's injury. No problem. Still great defense. So yeah, that's a guy who has done a lot with that team over the years and last couple of years. And yeah, I think he definitely deserves another shot. And we saw when he had a great offense coordinator in Kyle Shanahan, they did pretty well.
Yeah, exactly. You need that young, brilliant offensive coordinator with it. And yeah, you're going to have to then endure offensive coordinator changes. But I like Dan Quinn would probably be my second as well, because boy, does that defense need fixed. But yeah, we need a bright offensive mind. So would be fine. Very happy with Ben Johnson, would be happy with Dan Quinn. I'm sure Andrew probably agrees with us, but thank you guys for joining us in chat. And yeah, as Andrew said, the BBM finals ride was fun for sure. Even if you don't finish where you want, it just makes you more hungry the next year. So we're hungry here. I know Andrew's hungry for lots more best ball. And I just, did you see those stats, Steve, on the best ball stats of like 25 million paid in NFL, like 2 point some million drafts done during the NFL season? It's just wild. This format is just literally going to the moon, as the kids would say. And we are big believers, and yeah, we just are going to keep doubling down on our belief in best ball and our content for best ball. So this is a form of best ball that we're talking about, or it's Underdog Battle Royale. It's their dailies. It's their daily format, I should say. So we're going to pull that over now, and we are going to do a week 18 Battle Royale draft. Lots of week 18 stuff to talk about, Steve, as far as the implications, as far as, obviously extra incentives. I want to focus mostly on the teams that are playing for something. I assume that is what you are doing, but like you said, that you could probably find some value spots that could be low or unowned. Are you you're kind of considering that as well, I assume?
Yeah, I think that's a way, especially in this drafted format where, a lot of guys will be, 100% drafted. You find that one guy who, he's getting all the running back role, or, he's now the number one receiver because a couple guys are sitting and he's getting 12 targets where he typically gets 4. And, he's only drafted in 10% of the lineups. And now, you could get a separator.
Right. Absolutely. I like that. I'm looking quickly at some of your rankings. I know you did kind of prioritize the guys who are playing, or teams that are playing for something, like Dallas, like Tampa, like the Packers. But then you have guys like from the Cardinals, like James Conner, and stuff like that make a ton of sense, that still are going to give it a full go. So I like that. You can, like you said, even lean into backups or incentive stuff or stuff like that. So we have starting in a few seconds, we are the 4th pick. So I believe I've done one draft so far, and I believe I did get a Dallas stack. So Liam will most certainly be gone. Who do you want to queue up here? Yep.
Yeah. I mean, I like those receivers. I like AJ Brown.
I like Evan. I like Evans honestly better than Brown, quite honestly. But
yeah, I know Evans has some big incentives. I mean, Carolina just hasn't given up a lot of big receiving games, partly because teams just, get up on them. But I do know there are some incentives for Baker and Evans.
I do actually think DJ Moore is interesting, and like just wanting to potentially the narrative of wanting to keep Fields and that kind of stuff. So wow, when Lamb, Jefferson, Prescott were up, I assume you'd rather receiver over Rashad White or one of the quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's up to you. I'll let you.
I go AJ Brown.
Okay. Do you worry at all about like scoreboard watching? I mean, us being Washington fans, there's a world where Philly looks up at the scoreboard and they're up 28-3 and they back off a little bit. You worried about that? Because I am a tad.
There is a little of that for sure, but I do think there's also a sense of we know Philly can score quick. They typically get out to pretty decent leads. And so they also could, jump out early. And with Devonta Smith, banged up, AJ Brown should get all the work that he can handle. So I just don't mind that. And
okay, well, I queued up Jalen Hurts. Not sure if he's going to be there. If he is there, I assume you want me to take Hurts.
Yeah, because that is one of the key things. Is I do think quarterback has such a drop off this week because there are so
I
many
queued up
guys.
other quarterbacks I like that have the motivations. Fields playing for audition, whether it's making the Chicago fans happy and keep chanting his name, or for another team, love Mayfield. I kind of focused on the quarterbacks with the motivations who are ranked the highest in ADP generally.
Yeah,
too, which makes
but
sense.
I think it really drops off after Hurts, Love, and Mayfield. I mean, I
right, because there's so many backup. There's so many backup. Okay, so they took Hurts. There's so many I mean, look at this. I have Evans queued, but look at all the after you get past like Goff, Lawrence, Carr. Look at all the backup quarterbacks we have. I mean, my God, Carson Wentz is playing again. For the love of God, I like Mike Evans here. Double tap those stud receivers. What do you think?
Yeah. No, I think that's fine. I think.
And if we want Baker, we can get Baker.
Exactly.
So. Anyways, I'll leave those queued up. I have DJ Moore still queued up, Fields, Jordan Love, Baker. Let's take a look at the board, because sometimes it's just nice to see, if you haven't done a draft yet, how the draft went. And it went Lamb, Jefferson, which that surprises me a little bit, the Jefferson at 2, but Dak, AJ Brown, Amon-Ra, Rashad White, Travis Etienne, Jalen Hurts, we took Mike Evans, Jerome Ford. Aren't they sitting a lot of their guys, Cleveland?
Yeah, I don't think it's been determined whether Forder is one of those guys who will be sitting or not. But
you have to think he'd get less. Yeah. These are the kind of things that we're kind of talking about, is just pay super close attention to those kind of things. Like, even if they're not sitting, how much work are they really going to get? So obviously DJ Moore went. Any running backs you want to queue up here? I know you like Connor. What about Breece Hall just going off again?
I mean, I don't mind Hall. I don't necessarily love running back there. What's tight end looking like? Just curious.
And there's
okay.
You got McBride. I mean, it's right around his ADP. I don't mind that. I mean, it's up to you though.
Yeah, I actually don't mind Ingram because they have a lot to play for.
Yeah, it looks like we can get him lower, but we might be. So, I mean, Chris Olave playing for a lot, Devontae Adams, and then Connor, 11 seconds. What do you like?
Yeah, I'd go Connor.
Okay, I like Connor. I mean, he's been, as they said, the hero of the upsets lately, and they could all play the ultimate spoiler. So we'll be up in 4 picks. So at the turn it went DK Metcalf, Aaron Jones, Justin Fields. So they got a DJ Moore, Justin Fields stack. Brandon Ayuk, that he might be sitting. We got James Conner, and then we'll be up again at pick 21. So
the other thing to consider is if Jordan Love's there, then we could, maybe take Kraft. We could,
So do you like Jordan Love? Oh, even though we have Evans, do you like Jordan Love over Mayfield, and then look to stack him later?
Yeah, I mean, I just think the upside is definitely higher. I mean,
yeah. I mean, both Baker and Evans are playing for a ton of incentives this week, in addition to just win and make the playoffs. But obviously, Love and the Packers win and make the playoffs. I think he makes the play. And he just. I was ready to click it too. Damn it.
I would just take Baker here just to lock it in. I know most teams have a quarterback, but we just don't.
But let's look at that. I mean, hold on. Because that's key. If most do, then 1, 2, 3, 4. So the only one that doesn't have a quarterback outside of me is the Lamb, Metcalf, Aaron Jones.
2 picks before you pick again.
What's that? Yeah.
Did have 2 picks before you pick again.
Oh, gotcha. Well, then how thin does receiver get is the other question. Or excuse me, quarterback get.
I think it gets pretty thin. I'd rather have the Baker stack with Evans.
Okay. Yeah. Like if everybody had quarterbacks, then we'd wait.
Yeah.
That's how you play Battle Royale. You look and see what positions are filled. If you need a tight end, everybody has tight ends. You can wait till the last round. Same thing with quarterback. In this case, there was one guy that would have 2 picks. So that makes sense. So we have Baker. We have quarterback, running back, 2 receivers, and no tight ends. We have Baker, James Conner, AJ Brown, Mike Evans. We have Evan Ingram queued up. So let's look at any other of these running backs that you're interested in. Again, a lot of weird situations here that don't know how much.
So one of my
ahead.
favorite situations is probably Clyde Edwards-Helaire because Pacheco's sitting and McKinnon's hurt. So it sounds like CEH is now healthy. So, this could be one of those situations where he's getting like 20 some carries. And it's a Chargers defense, which is so bad. I mean, McLaughlin was running against them last week,
Right. Only I just queued up other guys with motivations. Reed, Ridley, and you queued up Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I think we could wait on Clyde Edwards-Helaire if we wanted. Ingram went.
Ferguson would be.
Go ahead. What?
Ferguson would be the next guy.
Oh, obviously that makes. I say we grab Ferguson here, and get the because I think Clyde did. So okay, so let's look at the board here. We have one pick left. We can either go receiver or Clyde Edwards-Helaire there. But after we took Baker Mayfield, it went Chris Olave, when David Njoku, Devontae Adams, Evan Ingram, Herbert, Jahmyr Gibbs, Puka Nacua, and we took Ferguson, and we will be back up with our last pick at 32. Steve made a great point about Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and then I queued up two receivers that just have a lot to play for. I know Reed is banged up, but I mean, obviously he
sounds like he's playing.
Yeah, I would imagine.
They have so much to play for. So
yeah, again, for both these teams, win and they're in, losing you're out, basically. Thank you, Andrew Puka-Nacua. Yeah, I forgot the extra Nacua. I always mess that up, but Puka-Nacua is a good name for him. And then we'll answer Andrew's other question in a minute after we make our last pick here. So Jaden Reed just went. So it really comes down to Ridley, CH, or someone else. What do you think? I mean, CH could be one that is less owned. Do you think?
Yeah, that's like he's one of those guys where I think he won't be highly owned. Maybe in 10% of these drafts, and if that, because news might hit very late that he's getting a massive role. But
I mean, I assume they're calling up what's their fourth guy,
Deneric Prince. And,
you really think it's really going to be him with a high
volume? Yeah, I would think so.
Okay, that's what we're going to do. So let's recap here. From the fourth spot, we got AJ Brown. Jalen Hurts went right before us. We took Mike Evans. Then we got James Conner, Baker Mayfield stacked with Mike Evans, Jake Ferguson, of course, attacking Dallas, everything to play for against that terrible Washington defense, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire could have all the workload and be low owned. So
and against the terrible Chargers defense.
yeah, the matchup is certainly there as well. Just to answer some of Andrew's questions, since the draft is completed, looking down the board, do you think there is better values at running back or wide receiver for Sleeper Steve?
Right now, I would say running back, because I do think, we still need to hear on some of these teams, who necessarily, is Ezekiel Elliott going to get the work against the Jets? I'm going to presume so. So, I like him. I like some of these other backs. I'd like to hear what happens with, for instance, the Bengals. Is Chase Brown going to get any work, or is it going to be all Joe Mixon? Joe Mixon has some incentives. So if we think that the incentives are going to come into play, boy, I like Joe Mixon. But if they're like, Joe Mixon, we don't want to mess around with that. May they give Chase Brown a big workload? So I think there are some lower backs in that regard. Clyde Edwards-Helaire being one, and another one that just popped up. We all know that CMC is sitting, but now Mitchell is mispracticed due to illness. So Jordan Mason could be another one, and just in line for a massive, massive workload. So just keep in mind there. We still need to wait and see the Zamir White versus Josh Jacobs kind of situation. That's another one that's kind of up in the air right now. But I would rather focus, because I think some of these teams with the backup quarterbacks or the secondary quarterbacks could really rely on running backs also. And
So
And that,
you like the running back values more,
yeah.
basically.
And so like we had in our draft, a guy who took Ford, I wouldn't be surprised if Ford and Hunt both end up not getting a lot of workloads. Maybe somebody like Pierre Strong Jr. is like
Mhm.
a great play because he might get 20 carries.
Yeah.
So, kind of wait and see if more information comes out there.
Yeah.
You
What a
know,
week. What a week.
yeah,
It's fun though. It's fun. It's where you get the edges though. It's where you get, I mean, obviously we kind of, and it's not, being rude. It's just, we kind of saw some edges in the draft we were in. And I think, makes me want to do more week 18 because I just
yeah,
really, really, really want to focus on, like you said, either the guys that are playing for something for their teams or contract stuff or meaning contract incentives or guys that are just in massively great spots of volume for those value running backs that you spoke to.
yeah.
Okay, now let's shift gears and talk DraftKings Short Slate. We're combining two shows together this week. Next week, we'll go back to our regularly scheduled programming and hopefully also do some playoff best ball drafts. So let's talk Saturday Short Slate, and then we will have the Saturday Short Slate survey up on Friday through the weekend, and then the Sunday primer for both early and afternoon up on fanspeak.com. So check that out. Okay, so so the Saturday special, of course, is Pittsburgh at Baltimore. Baltimore resting most of their obviously stars at 4:30 on Saturday, and then 8:15 you got the big AFC South divisional matchup, Houston at Indianapolis. You win and you're in, lose and you're out. If Jaguars lose, you end up being the AFC South champion. So a lot to play for there. How are you handling this, Steve? Are you just focusing on stacking up that second game more and using the first game filling in? I mean, certainly the contrarian way would be to probably, play a little more of the first game, but how are you handling this?
Yeah. So the other thing to keep in mind with the first game is they are calling for some weather in that game in Baltimore. Rainy, maybe slightly snowy, windy conditions.
Right.
So, that also could literally take a little bit of the air out of Mason Rudolph and those Steelers receivers, especially. So, I think that is that could affect some of the ownership on them, despite how good Pickens has looked these past couple weeks. We'll have to wait and see exactly which Baltimore receivers are out, because then, we know like Nelson Aguilar is going to get, 100% of the snaps or something like that. Then, he could be a good play.
Yeah.
Even with Tyler Huntley. So yeah, no, overall, I like the Houston side of the Houston Indy side, especially Stroud, Nico, and Singletary. They've all, been really good to us in fantasy all year. From the Colts side, JT and Pittman, very strong plays, of course, but I don't think we can totally discount Mason Rudolph. I know looks scary going against the number 2 Baltimore defense, but of course, they're going to rest some defensive starters. Humphrey went down due to injury. So, and Steelers do have everything to play for, while Baltimore doesn't. Just from, yes, they want to play spoiler. I don't think Steelers are going to necessarily put up a monster score, but whether it comes through the air or on the ground, I'm guessing Steelers are going to, not necessarily be trying to settle for field goals in these windy, snowy conditions either. So,
Yeah.
I expect them to try and, get up big early, and not try and, hope for the last second touchdown like the first game against Baltimore. The Pickett to Pickens touchdown.
Right.
So, I think Mason Rudolph is a little bit of a contrarian play. I think Huntley's also a contrarian play, and obviously it's the rushing upside. We saw a couple years ago, 2 years ago, he had some fantasy upside, but yeah, I mean, he's not going to have any of the starters really with him, the key starters with him. So,
okay, yeah, let's break it down to be organized here. So let's break it down position by position. So obviously you like the second game better. Ranking the quarterbacks, so it sounds like you would rank them. And again, I think that's how most people rank them. So again, obviously Stroud would be the most owned. By the way, Stroud was your 50K winner on your 70K short slate day, correct?
No, it was Lawrence on that.
Or was it Lawrence in that game?
Yeah.
Okay, because he had 33 in that game. I was looking at the Jacksonville game. Okay, that's right. It was a big Houston Jacksonville stack. That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. So it's Nico who was in your lineup that day, right? Okay.
Yep.
All right. So I assume ranking, and again, if you want to be more contrarian, And let's be honest, there is a world where Rudolph or Huntley or Minshew could outscore Stroud. You will get ownership leverage, but I assume you're ranking it kind of in order: Stroud, Minshew, probably Rudolph, then Huntley.
I think I'd take Rudolph above Minshew.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm glad I asked because I just assumed. Okay. So, okay. And of course, pay attention again to the exact weather conditions on Saturday. But so you'd rank it Stroud, Rudolph, Minshew, Huntley. Okay.
Yeah.
Good. That's helpful. Now, in the running back position, you've got JT at the top. I assume Gus Edwards is sitting. You got Devin Singletary in a great spot in that same game against the Indianapolis bad run defense. You got both Harris and Warren on the ground. Again, Baltimore will be seeing some defensive players. So, Harris has been getting more of like the, ground and pound goal line and the volume and the goal line touches. He had 27 for 122 and 2 touchdowns last week. I like Harris in this spot. You got both of them. As far as Baltimore, it probably is going to be Melvin Gordon, correct?
Yeah, I'd imagine Gordon gets the majority of the carries.
Okay, so rank the running backs here for me.
Yeah, I with price considered, I'd probably give it to Singletary just because there's a $1,400 difference between him and JT. And the matchup I think is better. So I'd probably say Singletary, Taylor, and I think Harris Warren is a tie. Some of it is due to game script. The Steelers
Come on, our guy Felix is in the chat. He drafted like 89% Najee. I love Felix, big best ball stands. And
no. So I think it comes down to, if it's like last week and Steelers are up and ahead, Harris is going to keep getting the ball, get a 100-yard bonus, get that second touchdown. That's what it is. But if not, then Warren might get a few extra passes.
Okay.
That it's kind of game script dependent.
Okay.
I think a bit.
So how would you rank them?
I think Singletary, Taylor are one clear 1-2,
Okay.
and then Harris Warren are kind of tied, and it's kind of you need to tell yourself the story of how you think that game's going to go.
Okay. Would you do? I guess if you couldn't fit both JT and Singletary, then you would be fine doing one from that game and then one Pittsburgh running back. Then, right?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Okay. Would you do any 3 running back builds, or do you see yourself more focused on the receivers more in the?
Yeah, no, I think I would do 3. I don't mind 3 running back builds.
You could do the 3 and then build from there.
And honestly, especially if the weather is
you would reverse
looking kind of bad, you could take both Pittsburgh running backs because it might lead to more dump offs. Maybe even Harris gets a couple of dump offs that he hadn't been getting recently. And it's both running backs. I mean, that's what they did against Seattle. I mean, both running backs were very fantasy viable last week.
Yeah.
So, and that could be a way that they're doing, and they're both cheap enough where, they're cheaper than a lot of receivers. Like, when's the last time Josh Downs has done anything close to what Harris or Warren did last week?
So I assume you're not interested in playing much Melvin Gordon.
No, I mean, maybe if we hear that he's going to get like everything, but you have Huntley, who's probably going to take some of the carries and work, and even if they get, when they get near the goal line, maybe Huntley's stealing that.
Yeah.
And we'll see if they call up any other backs or anything like that. From the practice squad. I haven't heard anything yet, but I wouldn't be surprised.
Okay, let's go over to receiver. Obviously, at the top, you've got Nico Collins, your hero in the 50K lineup. You've got Michael Pittman Jr., just stacking up that game. Those two make a ton of sense. Pickens, who's been on a tear with Mason Rudolph. And then you go down to the Josh Downs, Deontay Johnson, Alec Pierce, then obviously, and this is why I think maybe 3 running backs could work, because then it gets a little thinner because you are getting into, and these guys could pay off, the Baltimore receivers that could still play and be active and have a big workload with Huntley. Is it Bateman, Aguilar, pay attention to news, that kind of stuff. Is it Tyrone Wallace? Just all that is the news you're going to have to pay attention to from Ravens camp and side. But how do you see yourself handling? Is kind of like Collins, Pittman a priority for you in most lineups?
Yeah, so absolutely Collins, especially with Noah Brown being ruled out. Robert Woods is questionable, but I'm guessing he's going to play. But yeah, I mean, they are super thin now. I mean, with Dell already injured. Xavier Hutchinson and Mechie have both gotten a little work this year, but Collins is going to get
I
all
assume
the
they're
targets.
men, right? Yeah, Hutchinson
Yeah.
and okay,
So I don't mind them, especially if for somehow Woods gets ruled out.
okay,
But I don't
yeah, because
mind
he's
one of
still
them
questionable, right?
um, with Brown out as well. So, but yeah, it's the wide receivers thin. I'd rather target a second wide receiver from Houston than say another wide receiver from the Colts. I know Pierce had the 58-yard touchdown, but that was his only target last week.
So you mean outside of Pittman? Like you love
Outside of
Pittman?
Pittman, yeah,
Yeah,
Pittman's great, but it's like trusting Downs or Pierce is tough to do.
yeah, it's proved to be
It's
thin.
been a long time since Downs has really done anything. Even when Pittman was injured, they didn't do much. So yeah, it's kind of dicey for me to go to those guys when you can get cheaper. Like Xavier Hutchinson, anyone who followed college football,
Yeah,
you know,
Felix just talked about his speed.
exactly. Like he was at Iowa State with Brock Purdy. And catches everything. That type of guy. Decent size. John Mechie, we know him from Alabama.
Mhm.
He's the number 2 receiver there behind Jameson Williams. So yeah, I mean these are talented guys. Drafted. With the Texans, obviously worked with Stroud all summer. So
Yeah,
I would rather take shots on them than those Colts guys at a lower price to ensure that I'm getting the top end guys, the Pittmans and
sure.
the Collins.
Okay. Yeah, no, I like that. I like that call, like doing like Collins Pittman and then one of the cheap Houston
Yeah.
receivers. Okay, let's talk tight end really quick and then we can kind of build like a shell. I assume likely will not play much or be out. Schultz, I love this week, has contract incentives, has a good matchup,
Mhm.
everything to play for. He checks all the boxes kind of, and especially it could be the second. Maybe you want to stack Stroud and two receivers and Schultz.
Yeah.
There's that option as well, or maybe you want to, have like a stack that runs back with, a couple receivers and Schultz. So I love Schultz this week. You've got Fryermuth and game with everything to play for. Not as high on the indie tight ends. My favorite might be Charlie Kolar. With most likely not getting much action. Kolar has been a preseason stud. He's just buried, behind the depth chart, and he got a touchdown, I think, in garbage time. What do you think about Kolar, and then how do you rank the rest of the tight ends?
Yeah. No, I mean, Kolar is, people forget, because of how good Likely's been and because Kolar was injured last year. Kolar was the higher drafted of the 2 tight ends.
Oh, that's right, because they were drafted in
Um,
the same last year's class together,
Same
right?
class and even same round, but Kolar was drafted first. So, they
Mm.
clearly prioritized him. Yeah, no, I think that Kolar is definitely a guy to target. Uh, Huntley will throw the ball. It's not like he's got experience, so it's not like he's coming in with nothing. And yeah, I could absolutely see him, just being peppered with targets. With probably if we're assuming Likely and Flowers and maybe Beckham are sitting.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I would not be surprised to see Charlie Collar have a pretty decent game.
So are really the only three of your tight ends, because this is what I'm considering. Tell me if you're in line with this to make tight end kind of easy. The only three tight ends I'm really considering is Schultz, Fryermuth, and Kolar. Is that how you are
So
landing on the tight end spot?
So I do think it's tough because the Colts rotate their tight ends, but in
Hmm.
a 2-game slate,
Hmm.
I think you
Yeah.
can take a shot on one. And if you're right, because I mean Granson's the only one above Min, and he's only 400 above Min. If you're right, and they get a couple catches, a touchdown on 2-game slate, that could be
Yeah.
well enough, especially if Likely is sitting like we're expecting.
Right.
So in that case, yeah, you can take a shot on the Colts guys. But yeah, I would prioritize them. Schultz, probably Kolar due to price. Frymuth right there.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
yeah,
Okay, that makes sense. That like especially it also depends how many lineups you're building, right? If you're only building, a couple, then you might not be interested in the Colts guys. But if you're building a lot, then you may want that part of your portfolio, then, right?
yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
All right, let's build a shell lineup and just maybe 5 positions or so, or 5 spots. And I'll let you go first.
All right. Well, I mean, I will start it off with Stroud Nico, just
Yeah, you
stack
might as
there.
well do the stack. Yeah. Um, do you like in a run back situation, do you like prioritizing? I didn't ask this question because we were going position by position, but this is good because they're priced almost the exact same. Jonathan Taylor 7,400, Michael Pittman 7,500. If you can only have one, and maybe you can get both, but if you can only have one, do you prioritize Pittman over Taylor?
Um, hmm, that's tough. I'd probably prioritize Pittman.
Okay. That's what I was leaning towards, especially since we like the Steelers running back situation. But it's tough. I mean, you could definitely see JT at home getting
Yeah,
there too, So
yeah.
I like both, and maybe you could do both, So, but let's go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and put Pittman in this shell. So we're down to 4,600. You could, save money with, some of the cheaper guys we mentioned. Who would it be?
Well, before we save money, let me just throw in. I will do Najee Harris
Yeah.
as the running back.
Yes.
I think they
Okay.
keep riding him.
Yeah. Felix, if you're listening, that's for you. You got the Najee play in there. I like it. I think he keeps rolling. I'm going to do my favorite tight end play on the slate. Well, actually, with Stroud, you might want to leave it open to do a Schultz stack. But just looking at what it can help you with salary, if you throw Kolar in there, then you're still left with 4,800 before you even put a defense in, So
Yeah.
so just say you threw in the Steelers defense, you're left with 5,400 for 3 spots. So how about we just fill out one more spot, and that way it can show you kind of what you can do. So it's all you. One more spot?
Okay. I'll do my favorite running back on the slate in that Singletary in a big Houston stack.
Oh, so you don't mind doing Houston Singletary with Stroud and really stack it up?
Not in this 2-game slate, and I mean, he's gotten at least 3 targets the last 4 weeks. So there's and I know most of those weeks were without Stroud, but again, just we're without Dell, we're without Brown. I think he'll get 3 or 4 targets.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I like that a lot. And then again, we talked about some of those cheap Houston receivers. So if you didn't do the Singletary route, you could go, the cheap Houston receivers or the Schultz route, to kind of
Yeah.
just focus on the passing game. You're kind of saying that just the Houston offense is going to put up a ton of points, and I like that approach too. So, yeah,
I think it's just one of those. Stroud is the best, even though he's a rookie and the least experienced quarterback on the slate. He's the best quarterback on the slate, so
right.
I'm going to roll with him.
Right. So you kind of ranked him again. You said Stroud, Rudolph, Minshew, and then Huntley. But yeah, I like that. But I liked how you kind of made a point that you can approach it through just stacking up all of Houston's offense with Singletary, or you could stack it with like Collins and a cheap receiver, Collins, Schultz and a cheap receiver. There's a lot of ways you can approach it with a Stroud stack. And I think that's kind of like what you did on the Dallas. That was a 3-game Thanksgiving slate. You did a big Dallas stack, and you stacked up Dak, Pollard, and had, I think, 2 receivers. And
I had Lamb and Cooks and defense. Yeah.
So that's exactly, especially the shorter the slate, the more that is viable, basically. Yeah. So, okay. Well, I think that, covers it for the 2-game slate. So we covered again, week 18 implications. We talked about how we're going to do a ton of playoff best ball, a ton of 2023 best ball recap, a ton of 2024 best ball content. So stay tuned for all that. Again, look for Steve's Underdog rankings. Look for our short slate content on fanspeak.com. But we talked about how we did the live draft on Underdog. We did a short slate shelf for Saturday. We're going to have short slate content for Saturday and Sunday. We got it all. And I think week 18 is going to be a lot of fun because if you stay on top of the news, you're going to have an edge in all formats. Those are kind of my final thoughts. What are your final thoughts before we get out of here, Steve?
Yeah, no, absolutely. News is going to be key, but motivations and just like who's out and who does that leave, because these teams only have so many roster spots, so some guys got to play, and in in the example of like a Charlie Kolar, if Likely's out, we know Andrews is out, and then other key receivers, Kolar could end up with eight targets. And this was actually Likely last year.
Yep.
Week 18 where he had a monster game.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, because they were sitting a bunch of guys and they needed to win, but it was like, he just had a ton of targets. And the Bengals that week were not playing everyone. So.
Right. And then that's right. And then they played the Bengals as the wild card the next week, right? Yeah. Yep. Okay. I was trying to remember that. I totally forgot that Likely had a big week 18. So, these week 18 games stick out because, they are just so unique with the playoff implications, the contract implications, the backups. Sometimes these backups will go off. So it's all about following all that news. So be sure to do that. Be sure to check out everything on fanspeak.com. Thank you for joining us. Look for everything that we've got coming, and subscribe on your way out. And for Steve, I'm Meg, and we will see you next time.